Never in my life did I imagine being abandoned in a strange village in southern Spain. No passport, no money, no one I knew, not even knowing where I was. The last image I saw was the rental car gradually disappearing behind the paved road amid the delighted laughter of Derek and his friends. The taillights flashed once, then disappeared completely as if it was all a joke. But it's no joke. I stood dumbfounded, still holding half an unfinished sandwich from the cafe, where the argument started. The harsh Spanish sun blanketed my shoulders, while the peaceful sounds of locals dining around the sidewalk seemed otherworldly, quiet, distant, and completely unrelated to her horror. Initially, this trip was called a group vacation, a group of close friends from college, and I was reluctantly invited by Derek to go along. He said it would be very romantic wine, ancient village resort. It sounds beautiful. Until the truth comes out. The argument broke out when I gently reminded him not to drink too much before driving. His friends laughed, especially Ethan, the loudest guy. "You're fucking him again." I stood up and planned to walk home, and that's when Derek exploded. He followed me out. His mouth reeked of alcohol, but his words were still deadly. "You always ruin everything, Claire. You want to be independent. Take care of yourself." Then he got in the car, and they sped away. At first, I didn't believe it. Surely they will come back, I thought. 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Someone will feel guilty. Someone will say, "Stop, go back and get her." But no one came back. 5 minutes, 10. Then a sound. The sun gradually sets, pouring orange-yellow light onto the red-tiled roofs. My phone says low battery, then turns off completely. I don't have a bank card, no passport. "Your wallet." Derek held it because "your bag looks so messy." Heart attack? I started shaking. I don't even remember the name of this town. I turned to ask a nearby waiter. He just smiled and said something in Spanish so fast that I couldn't understand. And then I understood the truth. This not a joke, not threatening to play, not a limit test. Derek was intentional. He took my passport, take all the documents, take both your phone and credit card. What am I doing? I'm abandoned, cruelly lonely completely. But the strange thing is, I don't cry. I just stood there, the feeling of betrayal slowly seeping into my body like cold water sundown. There is no place to sleep, not a penny, not a single relative, no chance of turning back. And then, a small voice rang out inside me. I just made the biggest mistake of my life. I used to think I was strong, independent since the age of 18, worked 2 jobs to pay for school, moved to Boston alone with no relatives, single-handedly decorated the house that Derek called the most luxurious place on Beacon Street. But none of that prepared me for this, left behind by her husband, like a worthless item in a place where she did not belong. The sun was almost completely out. Rows of white houses turned pale pink under the sunset. The small street where I stood became gradually deserted. Each row of cafe chairs was tidied up. Each restaurant closed early. The unfamiliar language rang in my ears like endless waves, but I didn't understand anything. I tried opening the phone. The screen is dark. No battery left, no backup charger, no wallet, no paperwork, nothing. But an elderly woman was left behind, wearing a floral dress, hair tangled by the wind, still holding half a loaf of cold bread in her hand. At that time, I walked like a shadow, without a goal, without a destination. It's just instinct. Had to find a place to spend the night. I wandered along the narrow stone-paved alleys, my eyes scanning every sign and every window. An old woman stood behind the door, looking at me with shy eyes. A young couple walked past, avoiding my eyes. There was a moment when I saw myself reflected in the ice cream shop window. Red eyes, messy hair, wrinkled dress, panicked, and dusty face. I looked at her and felt extremely strange. Finally, I found a small motel, an old wooden sign that read, Hospedage Familiar. I rang the bell. A silver-haired old woman stepped out, her eyes full of wrinkles but gentle. She couldn't say anything. She just pulled out 3 crumpled euro bills from her pocket, holding them out with a look of desperation. She looked and nodded. The room is an old attic, low ceiling. Yellowed walls, only a single bed with faded sheets, and a tiny lavatory in the corner of the room. No air conditioning, no fan. But I know. It's heaven compared to the sidewalk. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, the image of Derek appears, holding the wheel, smirking friends, screaming, "Cheers!" Then the engine roars and leaves me behind. I turned on the phone and desperately pressed the power button. Not up. Every 10 minutes I try again. Not up. It's like my soul also died with that battery. The next morning, the landlady knocked on the door and gave me a cup of black coffee and a slice of dry bread. I thank you. With my eyes, I can't say anything. I only know 3 words in Spanish. Hello, thank you, bathroom. After eating, I walked around the village, looking for any sign of Derek, a familiar coffee shop, a car, a sign with the hotel name, but nothing. No one knows his name. No one had seen any groups of foreigners. They continued their journey. Leave me behind, I sat down on the stone steps of an old church. The sun shined down harshly. I was sweating profusely, but still shaking. A woman gave me a bottle of water. I thanked her and drank like I had never drank before I thought about calling home. But how? And then, if you call, what will you say? Mom, my husband abandoned me in Spain? Or not, I can't stand the look Mom warned me. Can't stand the gossip behind your back from friends. I always thought Derek was a bit controlling. That afternoon, I sat in a small park. In his hand is the wedding ring, an upgraded version that Derek gave him on the 5th anniversary, after being angry because he refused to become a full-time wife. I took it apart, turned it over and over again. Then I stood up and walked into a small gold shop hidden behind a pharmacy. Es oro? Asked the boss. I nodded. 200 euros. He said, not negotiating. I know it's worth at least 3 times as much, but I nodded, because when I'm abandoned, I don't have the right to bargain anymore. I went back to the motel and rented it for 2 more nights. I bought a phone SIM card and a few small items. That night, I sat down and wrote by hand on an old piece of paper. Who am I when I am no longer Derek's wife? No answer. Tuesday morning, I went to the bus stop. The electronic board flashed names of cities I had never read about. Granada, Sevilla, Cadiz. I didn't know where to go, but I know to stay here is to slowly die in humiliation. A ticket checker asked me in broken English. Where you go? I looked straight into his eyes and answered, anywhere far, somewhere new. The old bus shook with each turn. I sat next to the window, holding a thin canvas bag. All I have now are a few old clothes, a plastic water bottle, and a few euros stuffed in an empty cigarette pack. Every time the car stopped at a small town, I looked out and saw local people greeting each other in Spanish, as fast as the wind laughter from roadside shops, and children running and jumping in the park. Everything belong to each other, and you, like a stray dust stain. After nearly 6 hours, the car stopped at a small coastal village. The name is San Juan de Sierra. I chose it simply because it's the farthest point that I can afford to buy a ticket for. Stepping out of the car, the afternoon sunlight was pale. The salty sea smell mixed with the scent of jasmine was blowing from somewhere. My chest suddenly felt a little lighter, as if this small village was opening its arms to welcome the exiles. I walked according to the sign, Centro del Pueblo, the center of the village, rugged stone roads, red-tiled roofs close together, an old church with a lonely bell. My eyes were dizzy because of fatigue, because of hunger, because of many days of lack of sleep. The wound on the sole of my foot was burning. Flat shoes were not for people wandering around. I sat down on the sidewalk, my knees hugging my chin. So we're really here. What am I doing? Living like a fugitive without a goal, without a map. I'm about to cry, but it's not possible. A strange voice rang out, female voice. Old age, señorita, ¿está bien? Little girl, are you okay? I looked up, an old woman with gray hair, kind face holding a breadbasket. I nodded, but my throat was tight. Doesn't make a sound. She sat down next to me, pulled out a small bottle of water, an apple, and a slice of bread from the basket, giving it to me without any questions. My tears at that moment, for the first time since the day I was abandoned, flowed out. Her name is Marisa, lives with her husband Juan, an olive farmer. They have no children nearby. One daughter lives in Argentina and has not returned for a long time. For some reason, maybe it was because of her exhausted eyes or simply fate, Marisa took her home. A small house painted white with a red tile roof and a trellis of bougainvillea flowers covering the facade. In the kitchen, there are the scents of mint and lemon and the steady sound of a wood fire. Juan looked at her, didn't say much, just nodded slightly. That night, I slept in a small room with a window overlooking the olive garden. The bed sheets are worn, but smell of sunshine. On the small table was an oil lamp and a picture frame of a radiantly smiling curly-haired girl, their daughter. I feel I'm living in someone else's past, and that's why I cherish every moment I get to spend there. The next morning, I woke up early intending to leave quietly, but Marisa had already woken up. She put her hand on my shoulder and gently said, "No breakfast first." "Have breakfast already." Breakfast is toast spread with olive oil and crushed tomatoes. Juan poured me a cup of strong coffee. They didn't ask about me, didn't ask, "Why are you here?" Didn't ask, "Where are the family members?" Nor asked, "Where is the husband?" They just treat me like family, and so, I stay. In the following days, I started helping with chores in the garden, picking leaves, sweeping the yard, and feeding the chickens. Juan taught me how to pick olives without damaging them, and Marisa taught me how to dry bread in the sun so it becomes crispy. I learned little by little, like a child, relearning how to exist. At first, I was clumsy. My fingers were red and swollen, and my legs ached. But that same pain makes me feel I'm still alive and starting again. A week later, I followed Marisa to the weekend market. They had a small table selling handmade olive oil, orange peel soap, and some almond cookies made by Marisa. I helped display the goods, learned how to say prices in Spanish, and for the first time, really laugh when a boy bought soap and sniffed it to smell the fragrance. In the evening, Marisa gave her a small envelope. Inside was €15, trabajo justo pago justo. Fair labor, fair salary. I looked at the money, the first money I had earned on my own since that marriage, and my heart trembled. It's small, but it's clean money. Do it yourself. Don't rely on it. No one is in control. That night, I turned my phone back on. The first time in nearly 10 days, I don't go on social networks. I don't check email. Simply, open contacts. Name Derek is still there. I quietly deleted it. No regrets, no pity. It's time to stop. Before sleeping, I looked up at the wooden ceiling, and for the first time, I whispered, "Thank you for leaving me behind. Thanks to that I know. I don't need you to survive." I used to think that the greatest pain in life is when being abandoned. But no. The biggest pain is when you have just stood up, just seen the light after a series of dark days. Then you are kicked down again, and the second fall is usually deeper, more painful, and much colder. I have been living in the village of San Juan de Sierra for more than 2 months. Every day I wake up to the sound of roosters crowing and the smell of bread baking from Marissa's kitchen. I'm used to washing clothes by hand, drying them on a line and waiting for the mountain wind to blow them dry. I learned how to rub olive oil on my hands instead of lotion. I sat under the shade of an olive tree, learning Spanish vocabulary with sticky notes. You are no longer the Claire of Boston, no longer the wife of Derek Pierce, a successful, arrogant man who always considered himself the right to control the world around him. One morning in early autumn, Juan and Marissa talked to her after breakfast. They want to expand olive oil production, bringing products to markets in neighboring areas, and they wanted me to be in charge of label design and product introduction. Using the design ability that I had buried for many years as a good wife, I feel like my heart is dancing. I will design, and I will learn how to help you to expand your brand. I said, and the two nodded. They laugh. Marissa's eyes filled with tears. I'm not just a guest. I'm a child. That night, I sat in my room sketching each logo model. I see myself again. The old Claire full of creative passion. That girl is coming back to life. A few weeks later, my first time directly selling at the Granada Regional Fair. I stumble when I speak Spanish, but I smile naturally. I know the products I sell, from how to press them, how to preserve them, how to taste them. And I'm confident. Not because I'm perfect, but because I know I'm living a real life. I sold more than 30 bottles when I hold a stack of euro bills in my hand. Made by myself, I feel I have my own life, no longer anyone's shadow. Then, one sunny afternoon, I was sitting in the garden pruning leaves when Juan ran out with a letter in his hand. He said that a man came to the village looking for you and left a letter at the bus stop. I opened the letter. Familiar handwriting, cold, succinct. The smell of old perfume. Derek Claire, I have found you. It's hard, but I know for sure you can't go too far. I came today with my lawyer. The house you live in is in my name on the legal documents I signed to buy some time ago. I want to talk. If you don't cooperate, we will solve it another way. Derek. My hands are shaking. I walked into the house. Marissa saw her face turn pale, so she held her hand and asked, ¿Qué pasa? Is something wrong? I don't hide? I gave her the letter. She read. Her face changed color. From worry to anger. Él no puede sacarte de aquí. He can't kick you out. But she looked at me, then said a sentence that nailed it. Pero puede hacerte daño? But he can still hurt you. That afternoon, I sat on the bench under the grape arbor, waiting. Every minute that passes feels like an hour. And then a shiny silver BMW car arrived. Derek stepped out wearing a white shirt, sunglasses, and shiny Italian leather shoes. Next to him is a strange man, probably a lawyer. Derek looked at me, not smiling, just cold and contemptuous. You look different, he said in a sarcastic voice. But it's okay. We go back to Boston, shower, change clothes, and everything falls into place again. I don't answer. The lawyer presented the file. This house belongs to Derek Pierce, according to a temporary ownership agreement signed in April. I'm stunned. Derek bought this house, then registered temporary ownership papers during his trip to Europe. When I was left behind, I was inside the home of the person who abandoned him. So what do you want now? I asked, my voice dry. Derek laughed. I'm going home. As for everything, forget it. You also know that living like this forever is not an option. Claire. I looked around, the grape arbor wood stove, the dress dried in the yard. I just baked bread this morning. She looked at Marissa, who was shaking with anger but stood still. I took a deep breath, then say, You're right. I can't live like this forever. But I was also wrong because of you. No need. Come back and be my shadow again. Derek was about to argue, but I didn't give him the chance. I ran into the house and pulled out my cloth bag. Bring all the documents and things you can do yourself, carrying a divorce petition. I wrote a long time ago, but haven't dared to submit it yet. I held it up in front of him. And this is what I want. I wish you happiness. And if you continue to bother the people here, I won't sit still. Derek was furious. But this time, he no longer has power as before. He left. No sorry. Say nothing. Don't look back. That night, I sat alone. Don't cry, no pain. Just feel exhausted. The pain doesn't come from losing the house. It's because, once again, Derek still thinks he has the right to come into my life, turn everything upside down, and then leave like it was nothing. The next morning, I woke up early, gathered my things, and left that house. I won't let Marisa object. I kissed her cheek, thanked her, then left. I rented a small room on a hillside 3 kilometers from the village. Starting again, from zero. Once again. But this time, it's different. This time, I am no longer an abandoned woman. I'm the one who chose to leave. The second fall was more painful, but it taught me how to stand up without anyone lifting me. 3 weeks after leaving my old house, the place that was my whole world during my time on the run, I still haven't called Marisa. I know she's angry or sad or both, but I don't have the strength to face it. I'm afraid I'll be soft-hearted again, afraid of going back again and losing the chance to really start again. I rented a small room on the attic of a family cafe with a balcony overlooking the Mediterranean Sea. The room was hot, the ceiling was low, and the walls were stained with sea salt, but I felt free. Every morning, I make my own coffee, clean the floor, choose my own bread at the store across the street, and talk to myself. Claire, you didn't rely on anyone today. Good. One late afternoon, I went down to the beach, not to swim, but to stand and watch the waves. The waves here are not as fierce as in Boston, not as noisy as Derek said, but gentle, even quiet, like a reminder. Just flow, just change, just do it again. At that time, a middle-aged woman came and sat next to me. She had long, loosely tied gray hair, a hand-woven coat, and eyes that seemed to have seen the world. She smiled, then asked in low English tourist. I shake my head. Reviver. She nodded, as if she understood. Her name as well was a famous architect in Madrid, but after a financial fraud lawsuit caused by her husband, she lost everything. Reputation, money, friends. She thought about ending her life, but then one day she returned to her mother's hometown, this coastal village, and began learning to make pottery. The hands will remember how to live when the heart doesn't want to anymore, Anna said. That sentence hit me like a beam of light. From that day on, I went to the pottery workshop where Anna taught. I started learning to shape dishes, cold, mushy, soft clay balls, but as they passed through my hands, they gradually took shape. Soulful has unique fingerprints. There are traces of the process of going wrong, then correcting, then going wrong again, then correcting again. Just like your life, Claire. I thought to myself when I first molded a bowl that was misshapen but beautiful in its own way. One evening, Anna asked, "Do you plan to return to America?" I laugh, do not have. But not sure yet. I just know I'm no one's wife anymore. I'm Claire. That's it. She smiled. When you dare to define yourself without being attached to anyone else, that is when you are truly free. The next week, I received an email from an old friend. Maya, a close friend from college who was coldly removed from parties by Derek for talking too much and dressing inappropriately. Maya wrote, "I don't know where you are. I just know. I miss you. If you are still alive, please reply to this email. I forgive you for disappearing, but please don't disappear forever. I cry. Then I write again. Keep it short, without many tears, but enough for Maya to know. She is alive and I'm learning how to live authentically." A day later, Maya sent another email with an attachment. "They are recruiting freelancers to do design consulting for a chain of European rural-style homestays. I just introduced you. I said you are the person who understands the feeling of starting again in a strange land more than anyone else." It took me nearly 3 days to think, do I have enough courage to do my old job again? Or am I just good at baking, picking olives, and making pottery? But then I remembered the image of the first time I redrawn the olive oil bottle label for Marisa. Her proud eyes as she held the bottle with the words, "Made with love by Claire." I know, talent doesn't die. It's only buried by the wrong person. I accepted the job. 2 weeks later, I sent the first demo customers like it. They want to order a 3-month package, and for the first time in almost a year, I have one bank account in your name, created by me with the first payment, $2,500. I made a video call to Marisa. As soon as she saw me, she cried like rain. "You can live! You really can live, Marisa!" She nodded. "And I don't need anyone to save me anymore. I can save myself." That night, I was alone on the balcony, looking out at the ocean. A strong wind blew. I stood up and shouted loudly, "Thank you, Derek, because you abandoned me, for teaching me how to stand up, and because now I am no longer anyone's shadow." The next day, I took the bus back to San Juan de Sierra, not to live there again, but to really say goodbye. Juan was pruning the olive tree, and when he saw her, he laughed loudly. Marisa ran out and hugged her. I told them about work about Anna, about the new drawings. They weren't surprised, just happy. Marisa took out a small box from the cupboard and gave it to her. Inside is a simple wooden ring. Juan made it for me. Not a wedding ring. It's a ring to remind me. I was once broken, but it healed, and more beautiful than before. When she was about to leave the village, Anna called, "Claire, someone asked to find you in the old village. It's a girl. Say, Derek's ex-wife. And she needs help." I stood dumbfounded. I don't think I will ever return to San Juan de Sierra again. But when Anna called, saying there was a young girl, brown hair, thin, in her late 20s, looking for her in the old village, and said she was Derek's current wife, then I know once again the past is knocking on the door. 3 days later, I was at the old cafe, where I began to redraw my life. Across the table is a girl named Emily. Her face is pretty but tired. She wore a designer dress and a Patek watch. But the eyes, bewildered, empty, very similar to me last year. She held the coffee cup without drinking it, looking at me as if she was looking for something. Maybe protection could be the answer. Maybe someone who understands me. "I know it sounds strange," she began, "but I looked for you because I thought I was living your life a few years ago. I don't answer." Just nodded slightly, she said. "That Derek married you more than a year ago after divorcing you. That, at first, he pampered her, gave her gifts, praised her as the right choice after a wrong marriage. But after just a few months, Derek started to take control. Schedule friend, social network close. Even what she posts, what she eats. I can no longer call my mother whenever I want. I don't know the PIN code for the joint bank account. And recently, I found out he hired someone to follow me when I went to yoga class." Emily swallowed, then whispered, I discovered I was living in the golden cage she used to live in, and I didn't know how to escape. I'm speechless. Too many old emotions resurfacing. The feeling of being controlled without realizing it. The feeling of having to ask permission to breathe. And the feeling ashamed of letting others make me invisible. Emily looked at her with tears in her eyes. You once escaped. Please show me how. That's when I realized. I am being placed in a position where I longed for someone in the past. Someone who understands one person survived a guide. But I'm not the savior. I can't, on behalf of Emily, lives her life. I just can tell the truth. I told her about the day I was left behind, back to the bus stop, about the dry bread, back to the shabby room, about Marisa, about Anna, about standing up, and the falling continues. Then stand up again. I said, there are no shortcuts out of someone like Derek. There is no secret sauce or perfect plan. There's only one choice you get out, and accepting it will take a lot. Emily nodded, red eyes. I'm scared. I was also scared, I replied, and fear is a good sign. It tells me I still have the ability to feel, and if you can still feel, you can still be free. Emily was silent for a long time, then she placed a small envelope on the table. Derek doesn't know I'm here. This is a copy of all assets in my name. If anything happens... I pushed it back towards her. I don't accept it, I'm not involved. This is my journey. But you maybe rewrite the ending before leaving. Emily asked one last question. Do you regret it about everything? I smile, not short, not long, but real enough. No, because if you knew who you are now, I would be willing to lose everything I ever had. After she left, I sat alone. Whiffle. A boy walked by holding an ice cream that was dripping down his hand, laughing like crazy. Life continues, as it always has. That night, I went home, turn on the lights, place the kettle on the stove, look around the small room. Not lavish, not perfectly clean, but it is where I own every square centimeter of space. And then, I took out my notebook. Write one line: I have forgiven myself for letting others determine my worth. 2 days later, I received a parcel with no sender recorded. Inside is a handkerchief embroidered with the words, to the woman who reminded me I could leave, thank you. Below is a photo. Emily standing in front of the ocean, short hair, peaceful face. Claire laughed, no tears, simply close the window and turn on the device. Write a new email line for a design project. Hello, I'm ready to begin. That morning, I made coffee earlier than usual. Not because of worry, not for work, just because I like it. The feeling of preparing for a new day on your own with no one giving orders, no imposed schedule, only choices and freedom. After meeting Emily, I felt like I could breathe deeper. It was as if the last piece of memory, the part that throbbed every time someone mentioned Derek, had been wrapped up, labeled, and filed away in the memory drawer. Don't delete it, but you no longer have the right to control me. Like scars. It's still there, but it doesn't hurt anymore. 3 months passed. I still live in that attic room, where light filters through the curtains every morning like a gentle reminder. Every day is a beginning. No one can take it from you. I got more work. The homestay design project was successful. The customer introduced me to their friend, a chain of eco-lodges in Portugal. They wanted a natural yet profound style. Like me, now I'm no longer afraid of incoming emails. No longer startled when you receive a text message from a strange number. Every conversation is a choice. I don't try to please anyone. You do well on time, keep your word, and that's enough. Money is fine, self-financing. I'm not rich, but I have peace of mind. On weekends, I still go to Anna's pottery workshop, not to make a living, but to hold my hand and remember how to feel. Squeezing dirt helps me stay quiet. Silence helps me see myself clearly. I have molded my first set of ceramic cups. Although not perfect, but even sturdy and rustic, Anna looked and nodded. I'm not just molding pottery, I'm remaking myself. Saturday night, I sat with Maya via Zoom. The two of us poured wine, talked from Boston to Spain, from age 20 to age 35, from Derek to if we had stopped holding back in the past, maybe now would be different. I said, I don't regret it anymore. I don't feel like it was a waste of time, because thanks to those years, I learned I am worth it, even if no one recognizes me. Maya was speechless. Then raise your glass to the woman who no longer asks for permission to exist. Congratulations to the woman who no longer asks permission to exist. The next day, I walked through the Sunday market village. A girl selling cakes asked her if she was the person who used to sell olive oil with Marisa. I nodded. The girl gave her a small paper package and said she asked to give it to me if she saw it. She said, "That girl doesn't need anyone to save her, but deserves to be remembered." I opened it. There was a handwritten piece of paper. The words were crooked. Claire, this year's olive oil tastes different. Probably because of the lack of your laughter in the garden. I held the paper and smiled. Don't cry, just laugh. Winter comes slowly but surely. The cold wind poured through the door, causing the small room to shrink. I knit more scarves and brew more ginger tea. But my heart is warm. No need for anyone to hug. No need for a full-sized comforter. Just, I am complete within myself. That night, I wrote the first line for the little book I cherished. New life does not begin with revenge. It starts when you stop wanting someone to witness your growth. Claire, no longer Derek's ex-wife, no longer the outcast in Spain. Just Claire, a woman who knows who she is, what she needs, and no longer needs permission to live brilliantly. On weekend mornings, I stood in front of the mirror. No makeup hair in a lazy bun, wearing an old sweater. Look at yourself. And for the first time in my life, I smiled and whispered, I'm proud of myself. Spring comes with pots of lavender flowers placed along the stairs of the downstairs cafe. The sun has stopped being harsh. There is only enough yellow left to dry every drop of dew. I still live in that attic room, still work regularly, still go to the pottery workshop every weekend. Life is light, portable, and reliable. Until one Monday morning when I was sending the design to a customer. The cafe owner knocked on the door. Claire, someone asked you outside the store, said, former colleague from America. I'm down sitting at the table on the porch, is Michael Turner, Derek's former partner. He wears a gray suit, wears a good watch. His face hasn't changed much, still sleek, still exuding the success is natural energy. I stopped Claire Weston. You really disappeared. I sat down, kept calm. What are you here for? Michael smiled. I have a suggestion. Derek is expanding his real estate investment segment in Europe. They need someone in charge of interior design for boutique hotel projects in Spain and Italy. And the first name Derek suggested was Claire. He said, no one understands the taste of high-end customers better than me, and he wants to make peace. I laugh cold. No sarcasm, just the smile of someone who has been burned now knows what fire looks like. And what do you get? I asked money name, and the chance to return to the center. Center. What is that? The place where I had to wait until 1 a.m. just to submit my mood board? Is it where I had my project canceled by Derek just because it didn't fit the company's image? I sip coffee. Light, thank you for coming. But no. Claire, listen to me. This opportunity. I interrupted. I'm not looking for opportunities to be given by anyone. I created it. Michael stood up. The look in his eyes as he left was no longer contemptuous like before, but a mixture of regret and incomprehension. You have really changed. No, I returned to my true nature, the one Derek tried to distort. He's gone. But that whole day, I couldn't concentrate. It's not because I regret the invitation, but because it brings back old feelings, the feeling of having to try to prove to be better than the pain. That night, I went to the beach. The spring sea is not cold, but quiet. I sat looking at the waves, and I understand guys like Derek don't come back to apologize. They come back when they think we've forgotten, and they hope to use the opportunity to drag themselves back to their old place. Again, the next morning, I opened the email. The final design for the homestay chain is approved. Customers sent additional messages. Your design has soul. Not just luxurious, but real. Like someone who has lived through suffering and learned to love life again. I read, then burst into tears. Not because of sadness, but because someone sees me. Not through my husband's name, not through my CV, but through my eyes, my use of color, and my effortless composition. That weekend, I received a handwritten letter from Emily. For the second time, I filed for divorce. I don't ask for property division, just be free. And I remember her words, if you still feel you are still free, I'm still afraid. But this time, I won't come back. Attached to the letter is a photo. Emily stood in front of the court, holding the hand of a little girl, her daughter, whom she did not know. On the shirt is a pin with the word courage. I pasted the photo on the noteboard next to my bed. Next to it is Maya's birthday card sent by post to Claire, the woman who never let anyone write her ending. In the evening, I turn off the lights and shorten the curtains, but my heart is open, not for anyone, just because. I chose peace without losing myself. When I landed at Boston Airport after nearly a year of living in Spain, the first thing I felt was not the cold air of early winter, but the smell of memories. Every corner of this city was once a part of me. The small cafe on the corner of Cambridge Street, where Maya and I used to study until late Copley Station, where Derek held my hand and said, I'm proud of you, after the first exhibition. Now all those places still stand still, but I'm no longer the me of that year anymore. The purpose of this return trip is simple. I was invited to participate in a design exhibition at a major event, a gathering place for rising creative female faces, especially designers living and working abroad. My name is at the bottom of the list, but it is a name that attracts many people's attention. Claire Weston, Derek Pierce's ex-wife. But no one expected. You are not just a shadow of the past. I come with a collection called I Once Disappeared, and I chose to return with my own colors. On the opening night of the event, she wore an elegant blue-gray dress, designed by herself, her hair tied in a bun, no elaborate makeup. I came with Maya hand in hand, just like the promise I made last year. This time, I entered under my own name. My display is simple. There are only 4 interior design pictures. Not ornate, but every line, every layout carries the current. Claire's breath. Freedom. Honesty. Steadfastness. Everything is fine. Until I heard familiar footsteps. So familiar, I turned around and saw Derek. Still the same suit. Still that look, still the familiar, confident half-smile. He walked over without an apology, without a preamble, just placed his hand on the edge of the display table and said, I have to admit, you really surprised me. I don't answer. No nod, do not shake, just smile slightly. Derek looked around. It's creative. But if I had stayed in Boston, things would have developed much faster. I know clearly what those words hide. It's the way he always does it, both praise and lower, then add a little regret to pull her back. But this time, I don't play that game anymore. You're right, I can grow faster, but it's not necessarily kinder. In Spain, I not only learned how to design, but also how to breathe. He stopped. For the first time, I saw his eyes lose control. I didn't come here to argue. Derek said, I just wanted to know if you wanted to start over as normal partners. I laugh. Light but clear. You know what, Derek? There was a time when you just texted me like that. I would compose 3 versions of my pitch just to impress. But now, I don't need to impress anyone anymore. You just need to live right. And enough. Derek stood still, then turned away. As he passed by Maya, he stopped. Are you still with Claire? Maya shrugged. When you left, I was the one who stayed. At the end of that evening, Claire did not cry, not drunk, don't get angry. I just saw myself, has really returned, but not to go back to being someone else, which is to move forward like someone who has chosen the right path, even if it is not easy. 2 days later, I returned to Spain. On the plane, I sat next to a young girl who was deciding between 2 jobs. She asked, Do you think I should choose a more stable job, even though it's not fun, it's safe? She smiled, took a small paper cup, drew a curve and a slope on it, then say, What makes you breathe deeper? That's worth choosing. That evening, I received an email from a group organizing a TEDx conference. We would like to invite you to share your story, how to disappear, and choose to return in your own way. I read the email, then type a few words to answer, I'm ready and I will tell, with the voice I once lost. I tell my story, no longer to be pitied, but to inspire. Before going on the TEDx stage, Claire stood alone in the backstage room holding a glass of water, her palms slightly wet, not out of fear, but because her heart was remembering everything, like a movie going backwards. Laughter echoed in the small Spanish street, Marissa's eyes when she first held her hand. The piece of olive oil-soaked paper she used to write down her first dreams, and the look from Derek at the opening of the exhibition in Boston. The host nodded and said softly, 3 more minutes. Ready, Claire? She nodded. I don't tell this story to evoke pity. I tell so that someone sitting there like I used to sit there can stand up. The lights shine on the stage. Claire walked out, steady steps, not in a hurry, not shy. The auditorium holds nearly 300 people, enough to make anyone tremble. But Claire didn't tremble. She has been through more than just shaking on stage. She began with a light smile. I disappeared once, not on paper, but in my own life. She told, without dramatizing, but without avoiding. She talked about the day Derek left her in Spain with 20 euros and a wrinkled dress. She talked about the first night she slept in a damp room with no one calling her name, about feeling thrown away, forgotten, considered as a lesson for others. The entire auditorium was silent. Then she continued, But I'm not telling it to denounce. I'm not here to say who's right and who's wrong. I tell. Because I know there are people here living a silent version of that story, and they also think, I must be the only one who is this stupid. She stopped. The light is not dazzling. All eyes were on her, like candles waiting to be lit. I didn't get up right after the fall. It took me days just to accept that I was left behind. Then more weeks of believing I deserved to live, not just exist. She talked about Marisa, about Anna, about the hands that help her start again. Not with theory, but with bread olive oil ceramics and presents. I used to think someone will come and pull me up. But it turns out, that person is me, in a version I haven't dared to meet yet. She spoke slowly. Each word seemed to be engraved in the listener's mind. I'm not strong. I just have no choice but to continue living. She talked about the day she received an email inviting her to do her first project. Day refused Derek's invitation to return. And the day I stood in front of the mirror, no makeup, no one standing next to me, and said, "I'm proud of myself." The whole auditorium seemed to hold its breath. A middle-aged woman wiped her tears. A young girl bowed her head, clutching a notebook. An older man nodded, as if understanding something far away in his heart. Claire ends with a short paragraph. No exhortation, no philosophy, just a snippet of truth. If you're in the middle of a breakdown today, I can't say that tomorrow will be better. But I can say one day you will tell this story. Not with a trembling voice, but with the calmness of someone who has walked through fire and found the light within himself. She bowed her head. Applause rang out, but Claire didn't shed a tear. No need. Because for the first time in her life, she doesn't need others to understand her to love her. She understood and loved herself. Before the audience even stood up. That evening, in a small hotel near the Charles River, she opened her laptop and received a text message from an unknown person. "I heard your speech. I'm packing to leave a life where I'm no longer myself. Thank you, not for making me cry, but for making me dare to start." Claire smiled. "Turn off the machine. Pour a cup of tea." Then sat and looked through the window. The river was still flowing, and so was she. The next morning, she boarded the plane back to Spain with a new invitation waiting in her inbox. "We would like to invite you to co-run a restorative art center in Seville, where women who have experienced violence and control can relearn how to be creative and live freely." Claire closed her eyes and wondered, will this be the first time I not only step forward for myself, but also for other women? The city of Seville welcomed Claire with a velvety morning. The sun spreads down on Plaza de España like a layer of warm honey, and the wind flows through the ancient brick joints, carrying the scent of ripe oranges and distant guitar music. Standing in the middle of that scene, Claire understood life doesn't always start from a familiar place, but always start from the moment you dare to say, "I choose to live again." Named Restoration Arts Center, Alba, meaning dawn. It is located on the edge of the old residential area, in an old building that used to be a monastery. There's nothing flashy here, just a simple brick room, a few rows of rough tables, and a small courtyard covered with vines. But Claire saw it was just like herself, not new anymore, but there's still a lot to start over. On her first day on the job, Claire walked into the classroom where 6 women sat quietly. They are people who have been hurt. Some withdrew from society because of violence. Some lost direction after invisible marriages. Their eyes looked incredulous. No fear, just opaque, as if questioning, "Do you really understand? Or is it just another person who comes to inspire and then leaves?" Claire did not open the lesson plan. Do not introduce titles. She sat down, placed a piece of clay in front of her, and said I was left behind in a foreign country, with an empty wallet and no one to call my name. But when I was given a piece of land like this, I felt like I was touching myself for the first time. She straightened, not beautiful, not fast, but enough for all eyes to follow. The first lesson ended in silence. But before leaving, an elderly woman approached Claire and placed a handkerchief in her hand. Not everyone has the patience to not make others feel like they are broken. Thank you for not teaching, but staying. 1 week then, 2, then 4. Claire doesn't preach morals. She cooks with them, draw with them, shape the dirt with them. Be silent, breathe together. Then one day, one of the group said, "Claire, I bought a plane ticket to visit my mother. I think I can look her in the eye without feeling embarrassed anymore." Claire burst into tears, not because of emotion, but because I had become the person who made her want to exist again. Not a hero. Just one person dared not to leave. The third month, Claire planted a small vegetable garden in the central courtyard. Each person is in charge of one bed. Claire chose a lavender bed, like the one she first saw on the stairs of her small apartment in Spain. One afternoon, Maya made a video call. She was in Boston getting married, to someone Claire had never met before. Maya said, "I didn't marry to be loved. I married because that person didn't force me to change to be worthy." Claire laughed. It only took 15 years and 2 failed women to get there. Maya nodded. But in return, we have each other, and the best version of ourselves. That evening, Claire sat alone in the central courtyard. The breeze was gentle, the yellow light from the pottery room, and the murmur of laughter from the next class. In her hand was a notebook, blank. She wrote the first line, "I don't have a detailed plan for the future, but I know waking up every morning, living without having to ask permission, is a start." On the last morning of the first program at the center, the practitioners proposed to hold a seed planting ceremony. Everyone chooses a type of tree. Some people grow basil because it revives after each cut. Some people grow sage because it smells good, even when stepped on. Claire plants an olive. Seed, everyone laughed. "Do you think it can grow here?" Claire shrugged. "I don't need it to grow, I just need to remember. There are things that even if they take time, even if they are dry, can still bear fruit. If you are persistent enough and have enough faith." That evening, Claire locked the center door and turned her back to look at the building. Not to say goodbye, but to move on, because she knew she was in the right place doing the right thing and becoming the right person. And this story doesn't end with a wedding, doesn't end with great success, which ends with the most important thing. A woman who once fell, now strong enough to be a foundation for others to stand on. Sometimes you don't need someone to pull you out of the abyss. You just need a story to know you are not alone. If you are lost, confused, or trying to get up after being hurt, believe that you are still valuable. There's still a chance, and still worthy of love, starting with yourself. If this story touches you, please click like so we know you're there. Please share. This video is for someone who needs a ray of light. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel to accompany other revival journeys, because here we don't tell stories to lament. Let's start again, together.